Do you want me to start letting folks in?
Sure.
Or do you want to get the PowerPoint up real quick?
Oh, yes. Let me do that first. Actually, that's a wonderful idea.
And we're still waiting on Todd.
Oh, yeah.
Do the whole, or let me put it into its own screen so it's not.
Hannah.
Hi, Emily. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Oh,
How is everybody tonight?
very good.
Happy to
Good.
see all our visitors.
All right, Freddie, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody in.
Okay, great. Thanks, Emily. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, everyone. We're glad you're here. We'll wait a few more minutes as we continue to let people stroll in. Okay, Hannah, I'm going to pause my screen and switch to a different presentation. And then if you wouldn't mind kicking us off with our opening remarks, that'd be great.
Okay, thanks, Freddie. Good evening. I'm Hannah Roth, and I'm chair of the USGBC-Missouri Gateway Board of Directors. I'm pleased to welcome you to our 16th annual Green Building Showcase. We're so glad you could join us. Before we get started, I would just like to take a minute to acknowledge the significant effect of that COVID is having on the US and around the world. Over 582,000 people have died of COVID in the US. This is significantly more than the population of the city of St. Louis. Even as we see hope with the vaccines, I still feel these numbers are staggering. Would you please join me in a moment of reflection? Thank you so much. I'd like to share a few announcements before we get started with this evening's presentation. We have a great coffee break topic this Friday at 10 a.m. We'll be discussing the importance of ventilation in our buildings with our guest, Ty Newell. He is the co-founder of Build Equinox, a manufacturer of SERV, smart ventilation technologies. And he's a professor emeritus of mechanical engineering at the University of Illinois. Our coffee breaks, for those of you who've never attended, are free. They happen, they're a half hour from 10 to 10:30 on every other Friday. Speaking of coffee breaks, our education has teed up a great summer coffee break series on green building certifications. I'm honored to kick off the series on May 28, discussing the book I recently co-authored, The Green Building Materials Manual. We are engaging members to talk about WELL, the Living Building Challenge, Green Globes, and more. As many of you know, we've been involved in assisting the City of St. Louis with their climate and energy efficiency policy. As part of that work, we, the USGBC chapter, we provide education and training around benchmarkings and more. This Thursday, May 13, we have a benchmarking basics session scheduled for 11:30 a.m. And on June 4th, we are bringing back the popular energy efficiency and building benchmarking carousel with a focus on getting to BEPS, the city's building energy performance standard. We're also excited to be recruiting schools and mentors for the 8th year of the Green Schools Quest during the upcoming 2021-22 school year. We saw such success with the monthly challenge approach during the past school year that we're offering schools the opportunity to choose a year-long project or engage in the monthly challenges, or even combine the two. We gathered last year to celebrate the success of participants during the 2020-2021 school year. You can learn more about this at www.greenschoolsquest.org. And save the day for the next evening program. We're taking a brief departure from the regular scheduled program, and we'll be hosting a members social on June 8th, and that, of course, is a Tuesday. Since it's our 20th anniversary, we'll be inviting our chapter founders as special guests. Please stay tuned for details. Now I'd like to turn over the floor to Lisa Flegel. Lisa is a member of our education committee and will serve as our moderator tonight. She is a proposal specialist at Magellan Health with more than 15 years of communications experience. In addition to working in the private sector, Lisa has worked on various campaigns, most recently a nonpartisan ballot initiative to reform gerrymandering in Florida, which passed with 63% of the vote. A St. Louis native, Lisa is dedicated to public service and community actualization. In addition to serving on our education committee, Lisa also participates in the Coalition for Racial Justice at Jewish Community Relations Council of St. Louis. Lisa, take it away.
Why, thank you, Hannah. That was such a nice introduction. I'm honored it is from you. And as your moderator tonight, I am going to try to speak as little as possible and give the floor to the people that are working on some really impressive projects. And I do want to point out that while we are doing the presentations, please feel free to chat any questions you would like to ask the moderators during the event. And with that, I want to introduce our first presentation and speaker. Eric Gruenenfelder is with the Brentwood Bound project. He is Director of Parks and Recreation at the City of Brentwood. Eric has worked in municipal recreation for the past 20 years, including the last 8 years at his current position. As a member of the City of Brentwood Bound Administration Project Team, Eric has focused on project and green space development, as well as assisting with grants related to Brentwood Bound. And what he's working on right now is that the city of Brentwood has struggled with some severe flooding over the past century due to being on some 37 square miles of watershed. The plan is a comprehensive solution to overcome long-time flooding and public safety challenges. It's a $79.6 million plan to combat this and add green space, which is wonderful. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk about it in detail.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to take a quick opportunity to thank the Green Building Showcase for allowing us to speak tonight. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, Frederica says I'm not able to share my screen.
Emily, I think since you are the main person, would you mind
Try
making
now.
Eric?
You can try now, Eric.
Thanks.
Perfect.
Sorry about
Sorry
that.
about that.
Perfect.
All right. All right. Does everyone see the presentation at this point? Great. So again, I'm going to be speaking about Brentwood Bound, the city's flood mitigation project. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact the city has been working with a number of people on this project. The Board of Aldermen, the city administrator, a citizen-led community task force, our design team, who's been working with the city from the beginning, which is Jacobs Engineering, Horn and Schiffer and Plain Design Studio, and then finally Navigate Building Solutions. And you might be hearing from them later tonight. They've been our owner's rep for this whole project and have been instrumental in keeping this project moving along. For years, as Lisa said, the city's been dealing with flooding issues along Manchester Road. The city has spoke with multiple organizations, Army Corps of Engineers, MSD, consultants, other area municipalities to see what we could do to resolve this issue. Unfortunately, most of the time it's only affecting Brentwood, so it wasn't a greater project. So it was something that we had to kind of deal with ourselves. At the same time, we kind of started discussion with Great Rivers Greenway on how Brentwood connect to GRG's 28 miles of trails. And then finally, MoDOT actually came to the city with their plans to improve Manchester Road. So everything kind of aligned all at once to complete a transformative project within the city of Brentwood. And so as part of a strategic visioning session 5 years ago, the Board of Aldermen decided to move forward with this project. So we've taken 4 years of design, getting ready, and we're finally starting with construction. Now, the best thing I can do is play a short video for you guys. So let me do this again, make sure I do this right.
As you may have heard, Brentwood has struggled with severe flooding for the past 100 years. As you can see from this map, it's no surprise that we have a flooding problem along Deer Creek. Due to public safety concerns, this area has been legally declared blighted. Brentwood Bound is a vibrant collection of projects that are all bound together. After completing the flood mitigation, our floodplains will be restored so they can adequately mitigate the flooding in the project area for the 100-year storm event. But so much more than a restoration project, Brentwood Bound also includes plans to revitalize our city. In partnership with MoDOT, we're going to enhance the Manchester Road corridor between Hanley and Bremerton. Finally, Brentwood Bound plans to form a trail connection from Rogers Parkway just north of Manchester to the Deer Creek Greenway. We're excited about building a bright future for Brentwood, and we hope you are too. Together, we can complete the Brentwood Bound plan.
So that's just a quick introduction video that the city had done a few years ago to kind of introduce the project to our residents, to the community, to the greater St. Louis region as a whole. So the primary objective of from the beginning was to alleviate the flooding on the Manchester Road corridor. The project included many improvements to the Deer Creek, including stabilizing the Deer Creek stream bank, restoring the natural floodplain, and introducing design elements to reduce sedimentation in the creek. Once the project has been completed, the floodplain will be restored to handle the 100-year flood event. We'll actually create an urban creek in the St. Louis metropolitan area, something we think is fairly unique, and revitalize an underused area of the city. So to kind of start, we have some before and kind of afters. This is kind of the before of what it looked like. And then this is what the whole project area will look like once it's done. And it kind of showed this in the video. The yellow outline is the flood limits currently of when anytime we had a hard rain, we get flooding all the way down Manchester Road and even up into some of the residential area across the street. Once the project is complete, this lighter shaded area will become the flood, the new floodplain for the 100-year flood event. So we'll be containing all of that within a natural restorative floodplain. So this is Brentwood Boulevard. So Brentwood Boulevard going here, Bi-State's down here, Manchester Road's to the top. So this kind of looks of how it is right now. And again, what will look like in the future. The Manchester Road, again, Manchester, this is Mary, which is kind of there. So Brentwood's actually up here, and then Hanley Road's over this way, just kind of orient everyone. And again, this is what it will look like, hopefully, when we're done with the project. Then what we call phase one, which is from Mary Avenue all the way to Breckenridge Industrial Court. So you see Manchester Road up here. And once we restore the creek and the flood bank, again, you'll see a lot more green space, this recreational trail for recreation use by the citizens. And then phase two, which is from Breckenridge Industrial Bridge all the way to Hanley Road. So this is Hanley Road over here. And again, finally, what it would look like. So that's just some before and after shots for you guys. But once the project was approved and the city started design, the team quickly started looking at a number of green sustainable features that could be included in the project. We focus on features such as creating a series of floodplain benches along Deer Creek, significantly reducing impervious area. These floodplains will allow water flow to spread over a larger width, reducing erosive velocities and shear stress in the channel during heavy storm events. The main channel by Deer Creek is intended to adjust naturally to form a stable channel configuration. By removing construction debris and restoring a more natural channel material, the restoration will be self-mitigating and improve water quality by restoring the ecosystem. The project will utilize permeable pavement and small wetlands to store and treat water. We'll be utilizing renewable energy, solar panels, things like that, and also the use of native prairie plantings to assist with native habitat. And the project's also going to reuse excess soil as fill in different parts of the project area instead of taking it offsite or to a landfill. So we'll look at specific improvements a little bit by project area. Manchester Road doesn't really lend itself to multiple sustainable features, but we focused on making the corridor more walkable and bikeable. The pedestrian tunnel underneath Manchester Road is critical to the success of this project. That's what will allow Brentwood Park Trail System connect with the GRG Deer Creek Greenway. There will be 10-foot shared use sidewalks on both sides of Manchester Road, and all the light fixtures would be LED moving forward. And we have a number of water quality improvements, and that's something we really focused on, as obviously this is a floodplain restoration project. So the first is this Mary Avenue Pond right here. Again, this is Manchester, and or Brentwood's kind of right up here. So the wet pond will receive water that currently flows directly into Deer Creek. And so by increasing retention time, we can increase the water quality benefits, letting them kind of heal before they move into Deer Creek. Our engineers estimate that this pond in particular will reduce 32.2 pounds of nitrogen and 6.4 pounds of phosphorus from entering the Deer Creek annually, while treating 80% of this total suspended soils. The second part is this shallow stormwater wetland, which is right up here. And again, you have Manchester and then Hanley's on around this side over here. But this shallow stormwater wetland, which is kind of at the confluence of the two creeks, will be supplied by runoff from an existing parking lot and 2 new storm sewers that will run along the project area. The wetland will utilize varied grading below the culvert for water quality treatment, with the water being held by wetland plants and pocket grading. The wetland will provide over 22,000 cubic feet of volume for water quality treatment, which is almost tripling what is required to mitigate the disturbed area in this portion of the project. And this pond, along with the Mary Avenue Pond, will be designed to have permanent pools of water for optimal plant and wildlife habitat. So moving on to the Great Rivers Greenway connector, what included in this project is kind of what we call the Deer Creek, is all this sort of green space here that connects us, and it also has that additional green space. The big thing is the parking lot, which features almost 19,000 square feet of permeable pavers, a drainage system, which will be designed to encourage infiltration and maximize BMP efforts, BMP effects of the permeable pavement. And then we'll have 2 bioretention areas right here and on the other side will be installed to filter and direct stormwater from the permeable pavement, Razoo Avenue, which is a street running along here, and other tributary surface runoff in the stormwater collection system. And then finally, this is kind of the newest part of the project, and one we're really excited about is recently the city received a Missouri Department of Conservation grant to assist with the purchase of a little over 6 acres of land located just south of the bi-state agency. So this is bi-state. Here's our main project area. That's the connection to the GRG trail to Deer Creek Greenway. And we'll have this wetland right here as part of our project. What we did was in the grant, we indicated we would follow the recommendations of the Deer Creek Watershed Technical Advisory Group and the GRG's design charrette that was developed for this property in 2016. The city is really excited about the possibility of this purchase because of the benefits associated with the project. We're even more excited because we're part of that charrette. The city participated in that charrette in 2016. We've been looking forward to its implementation ever since. The consensus of the charrette was to minimize disturbance, to use a minimal disturbance approach and incorporate site enhancements into 3 separate zones. On the hillside, the recommendation is to slow and capture sheet flow from the parking lot and from Brentwood Boulevard by installing an at-grade buffer strip, including native wildflowers and grasses. The wetland arboretum, zone 2, the recommendation was to create that wetland arboretum with clumps of native trees and shrubs interspersed with native grasses. And then finally, the riparian corridor, the recommendation was increase the width on both sides of the creek and expand that corridor. And what we see is this is a beautiful educational piece of being able to bring people down. It's right off the trail, and it's just it will be a wonderful sort of educational amenity that we can provide to the city. So the city's also looking at sustainable design strategies for ancillary projects within Brentwood Bound. And the first is our pavilion event lawn. So our architectural team is utilizing many net zero design strategies. I don't want to steal Todd's thunder. I know he'll be talking about this a lot more upcoming in his presentation, but our pavilion will include things like natural regional materials, a high efficiency mechanical system, high performance enclosure, solar panels, and rain garden south of the building for the collection of stormwater. And again, we just have a couple of quick renderings of what that will look like, especially with the solar panels on top. And we think, again, this will be a great addition to the city because we can kind of showcase how we're utilizing solar in something like a pavilion. And then finally, we've just started design on what we're calling on our destination playground. We're working with SWT, who has a long history, including sustainability into their projects, and back that up with what they're doing with their own building. We're really early in the process, so we're still kind of early on. We haven't gone through everything, but some of the things we've already discussed is a water recovering and harvesting system. So when we have this water play system here, the water will flow down and then we'll pipe it to a storage tank. And we'll use that water that's been reclaimed for irrigation throughout the entire project area. We think that's a great sustainable use of the water that will be used in that system. Any place you see shade structures, we're looking about the possibility of putting solar on there. The use of native plant materials, a pollinator garden. Another thing we're really excited about is this demonstration of rain gardens and BMPs. As it comes down here, we can use this area as again, a demonstration educational site of how to collect stormwater and the benefits of doing all that with the rain gardens and other avenues. And then finally, again, we're going to use natural and regional materials. That is a brief introduction to some of the highlights of something we've been working on for the past 5 years. I could go on, but I'll turn it back over to Lisa and be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Great, Eric, thank you. That was wonderful. And I think we're going to save the Q&A for a little bit later in the presentation run of show. But I do want to introduce the next presenter, and that is an individual, Todd Sweeney, with Net Zero Kept Simple, also taking place in Brentwood. And Todd, prior to joining Navigate Building Solutions, served as vice president for commercial construction firm and was a licensed engineer. Over Todd's 30-year career, he supported the design, construction, and management of over 300 projects, ranging from large-scale institutional projects to small publicly funded infrastructure. Todd has worked on numerous LEED certified facilities in the region. And what they are working on is Navigate plans to build a net zero energy corporate headquarters in Brentwood. The development is expected to be certified as the state's first net zero commercial building by the International Living Future Institute by the end of 2022. Very exciting. Todd, with that, please take the floor.
Wonderful. So you guys are controlling the presentation, correct? Awesome. Guys, Todd Sweeney with Navigate Building Solutions. How are you doing? Also co-founder of Navigate Realty. We're here to spend just a few minutes to introduce what's a really exciting project for the region. It is intended to be the first net zero certified project by the International Living Future Institute, which is a certifying agency. And we're really excited about that because we think it kind of pushes the bar, raises the bar, and pushes the needle forward on sustainability in our region. We do want to talk through, or we're asked to talk through why it makes sense and why we're at where we are at. So if we could flip to the next slide. People often ask us why. Yeah, why we consider net zero. First and foremost is the first thing we're doing is we're building a new office building. So we have 17 employees and are growing to 30. And we need a new headquarters. We're very pleased to be following Eric's footsteps and be building in the Brentwood Bound district. So we look for new headquarters, and of the 30 employees, 65% of our employees are LEED accredited professionals. So we have a affinity and an interest in sustainability that goes beyond just our work as professionals, but also a personal interest in that. And we have a personal interest in being a life balance focused company. A balance that not only occurs with the individual, but also in our interaction and reaction with the community we serve and the sustainable nature for which we can balance life in that manner as well. What we saw was net zero was the talk of the town, quite frankly. I mean, you had it coming up in the political season. You have a lot of people talking about this buzzword net zero. So what we decided was why we consider net zero is because we had heard that buzzword. We heard that there could be a way to promote sustainability in a different kind of way. It aligned with our values, and quite frankly, it was also starting to show up in RFPs. So there's a lot of architects and engineers in the room tonight. We're seeing some stuff, especially in Illinois and other areas in the region, where people are actively pursuing net zero buildings. So we thought, man, why not? Let's take advantage of the opportunity of building a new building and prove it can be done. Not just prove it can be done from a technical perspective, but the unique opportunity is that Craig, my partner, and I are also developers. So we wanted to prove that it could be done cost effectively. Because so often we talk about sustainability in our industry, and it's always, well, we want to do it because it's the right thing. Well, why not do it because it's the right thing and because it's a cost-effective a concept? So we're going to try to prove that out on both ends. If you could flip to the next slide. First thing I did is I started exploring, man, what is net zero? How do you actually get a building certified? We don't want to just say we did it. And that kind of leads to my quote. 3 frogs were sitting on a log. One decides to jump. How many are left? I'm going to give you that answer, but there's a lot to that riddle. And it has to do with saying, not only do we want to do it, but we want to prove that it was done and it was done accurately and effectively. So we sought out what certifications existed. The Department of Energy in the United States has defined net zero, but they don't have a certifying process. The only 2 that currently exist that we were able to find was the International Living Future Institute and then the Passive House Institute of the US. And you can see those certifications here. The next slide, please. Why we choose the International Living Future Institute, first and foremost, is the one that's more focused on commercial buildings. The Passive House is more residential. This one focused on commercial buildings. It's internationally recognized. It's got some local exposure. So when we started studying International Living Future Institute, we were very surprised to see that there's a building in Missouri at the Tyson Research Center that actually certified components of its building as underneath the Living Future Institute. As you can imagine, like the U.S. Green Building Council here in St. Louis, there's gold, there's platinum, there's lots of different certifications you can get. That exists with the International Living Future Institute as well. But they had one certification, again, that we were interested in, which was net zero energy. And that's very simply stated by them as 100% of the building's energy needs on a net annual basis must be supplied by on-site renewable energy. I'm a pretty simple guy and I'm a developer. I can get my arms around that. That makes sense to me. What I didn't really like was this no combustion is allowed thing, but we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. If we turn to the next slide says, so next thing I had to do is I had to convince my partner that this actually was something we wanted to pursue. So before I did anything, I'm a lead accredited professional. I'm a mechanical professional engineer. I've been building buildings a long time. I started thinking through, well, what do I got to do to make this thing net zero, to generate as much electricity or power in some form as I'm going to use? And whether or not you like Tesla or not, he comes up with a pretty simple answer to the equation of why it's difficult to get long-haul trailers across the country with solar energy. It's because you can't store it. Batteries are expensive, right? And the only way you can generate enough power is to have a large surface area. You gotta put a lot of panels up if you're not going to pay for batteries. And I'm not paying for batteries, guys. I'm a developer. Again, this has got to break even for me or do better. So what we looked for was, do we have the right geometry? And what I noticed was any single story building, really, it's got more roof than they got walls. That makes sense. Schools, warehouses, commercial buildings like ourselves, that could be a good thing. Single story was important. And secondly, is where we're located in Brentwood Bound. We got Manchester on one side of us. We really didn't have a whole lot of shading effects from other buildings around us, which would be very important if you're considering net zero for your building. Also, we recognize we're a commercial office building, right? We don't have a lot of the heat gain that manufacturing has or assemblies have. So we really thought, man, we could make this equation balance. So the next thing I had to do is say, well, how do I know how much electrical I can get out of solar? Well, I'm going to be the first one to tell you, every solar company in town will give you a free analysis, right? That's a secret I thought I'd hold off to my next client, but I'll tell you, everybody in the room, you can go to 5 different solar companies and they'll give you analysis of how much energy you can generate on your building. We did that. Second thing I did is, I also, being an engineer, know there's a lot of things you can do out there for no cost to figure out how much energy your type of building is going to use. Lots of tables online. You can call me. You can call half a dozen engineers that are on the table here, and they'll tell you on a square foot basis, you should assume you're going to generate this much energy in your building based on the use. We looked at the two and I said, man, I think this could work. I called a bunch of different folks in the industry and said, am I just totally out of whack here? And they said, no. So we had to go. Next slide, please. So the next thing I went to my partner and said, I'm going to keep this simple. We're all about simple. Single focus, net zero energy, and I need a payback of 10 years or less. Okay, the solar guys were already telling me I had a payback about 7 years. That sounds good, but I'm thinking I'm going to have other costs. There's going to be other costs that jump out at us or we're going to have that I don't even know about. So I've got a little bit of wiggle room here before I'm going to say no go on this. But right now it's a go. And that was so important because I didn't realize as soon as people heard we're going to do net zero, oh my gosh, I got calls from every architect in town and every vendor saying, if you're doing net zero, that means you got to be doing a platinum LEED building, right? So you're going to have water and you're going to have solar and you're going to have all these things you got to add to your building. And me, I'm like a squirrel. I get excited about that. I want to chase the nut. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good, except that it doesn't get us back to the single purpose, which is net zero 10 years. That all those things are expensive. So not to take away from all the positive sustainability things we can do in our industry, U.S. Green Building Council, we're all here for that reason as well, has moved the needle in remarkable ways we're proud of. But for this exercise, we're just trying to do one thing, balance the equation. Next slide, please. So we went through a process. We did the gut check. We set our goal. We registered our project with the International Living Future Institute. We met with their coach. They have a nice program. I know that the local chapter of U.S. Green Building Council is also working with them on some joint things. And I think that's very exciting. It's a wonderful collaboration. We advanced our building and site design. We actually are going through a design build MEP process because I wanted to get to the answer quicker than later as a private developer. So we built a design build criteria document. We hired IMEG to do that for us. We competitively bid, and again, it's about money. You can competitively bid the solar system and the MEP design, and then 30% into the process, for sure if you're going to make it work. And why I say that is because though nobody though every solar company in town will tell you they won't give you a guarantee, I can tell you they will. So if there's any solar guys in this presentation, I apologize, but they will guarantee a generation. And if I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm going to use by my mechanical engineers who have now designed the building, I really felt comfortable that we're going into this and going to make it work. One thing that we learned late was check with your local utility company. When you generate more solar than you need, then that could be a problem for you. So fortunately, Ameren was willing to work with us and approve our project for a service that was larger than what we normally would have for the building because we have to kick that energy back into the grid. And then there's a number of other things listed here. So we'll go to the next slide. So everybody says, well, what did you end up with? Well, we ended up with a project at 8419 Manchester Road. And you can see the diagram here relates back to what Eric showed you before. This is one of the visions of the redeveloped Brentwood Bound area. And you can, we had a different slide on there. I apologize. My logo wasn't supposed to be back on this slide. So we corrected that, Freddie. I'm not sure what happened. But anyway, hey, I got my logo again. But we're going to be located on this spot on Manchester Road. It's an 8,300 square foot building, 38 spaces, north-south orientation. And really, as you can see by the diagram, we really don't have anybody around us that's going to cast shade onto our property. Go to the next slide. We are light gauge metal stud fiber cement building with vinyl hardy on the back and nickel stone on the front, TPO roof and low E glass. I can tell you nothing on there is a premium cost. There really isn't. Any architect in the room will tell you, oh yeah, it's about as inexpensive as you get for an office building. So what that says to you is you can do an inexpensive office building and still get net zero. If you go to the next slide, please. As you can see here, when we started doing original renderings, we were thinking a lot less solar panels as shown in the drawing in the bottom left. I could tell you one of the hardest things we had to do was actually with this roof area, we were talking about potentially spilling solar out on the parking lot because it takes a lot of solar to generate, compared to ratio. So we barely squeezed by. We are going to generate 107 kilowatt hours and we're going to use 96. And I feel really confident that 10,000 kilowatt hour buffer in there will be enough to ensure that we get net zero. Another couple things we're doing is online monitoring, which is kind of cool, which will be fun. And we'll have an electric car charging station. Couple more slides. People always ask, so did you do it? Did you get a 10-year payback? I can say, yes, we did. There were additional costs. So first of all, we knew the solar system was going to cost us some money. What we didn't realize was the additional airman service cost, right? Because now, they want to pay to get power to your building, but they don't want to pay to take power back, which is fair. So we had a little bit higher airman costs we had to cover. We had some more solar electrical feed costs that we wouldn't have had otherwise. We also had some additional soft costs. So we had a little bit of modeling we wouldn't have done. We had the certification costs, which were right around $4,500 from International Living Future Institute. We had some additional counting, additional of my time. We are consultants, so whatever I'm spending on this, I'm not spending on generating revenue from a client. And then we did lose a little bit of rentable square footage. People ask, why are you talking about these things? Because any developer you're representing or working with, this is the kind of stuff that doesn't show up when you just talk to engineers and architects. This is the stuff that impacts the bottom line of a developer, which I am in this situation with this hat. All those things together, we still came back with some savings as shown here and have less than a 10-year payback. Happy to offline share any of the numbers anybody's interested in hearing on that. Next slide. No, we're trying to, that's it. Oops, there it is. Thank you.
Great, Todd, that was wonderful. Your innovative perspective is welcome. And with that, we have our third presenter with creating connections, blending an owner's core philosophy and lead principles. And that is Peter Steuterman. And he is a construction administrator at Hastings+Chivetta Architects. Peter has over 40 years of experience in construction, administration, and project management. He specializes in collegiate campus architecture with works across the country. He's led the construction administration efforts for some of Hastings+Chivetta's largest lead projects, including the Platinum Certified Summers Center at Washington University, the Gold Certified Lilly Center at DePaul University, the Gold Certified GE Aviation Epicenter at the University of Dayton. And the project he's going to be talking about tonight is the new design for interdisciplinary, botched that word, interdisciplinary, don't say that on a Tuesday after a busy week, science and engineering building on Slough's campus. The team achieved LEED Silver certification for this project. Go ahead, Peter. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it very, very much. It's very kind. And thank you all for allowing to join the gathering and to talk about, the Slough Ice Building, as we call it, the Ice Building. It's much simpler than interdisciplinary science and engineering building. It is creating connections, and we're seeing a lot of connections today with Eric's proposal and Todd's discussions. But here we're talking about how do we blend an owner's core philosophy and lead principles. And so next slide, please. And this is the building. It is, a major part and a major addition to the science and engineering disciplines on the campus. Next slide, please. It was at $54 million. I mean, it's pretty decent money, 90,000 square feet. We did receive LEED Silver under the LEED version 4. And for this project, this is where we're talking about is blending core values. This was the first time that Slough on its North Campus attempted to get a LEED certification. They actually started talking about it with other focus groups within their campus community. And so they decided when this building came online and came into its design concepts that they really wanted to see what they could do with this. Another part of this building is the campus infrastructure replacement project. What that is, and it was right alongside, I was running both projects. This is a complete replacement of all the underground utilities, from power, data, hot water, cold water, everything that runs a building on a campus was replaced and upgraded. We moved substations, we created new substations, all those kinds of things. But what we were also doing was interconnecting and connecting this building to new systems, connecting new systems to this building, et cetera. Next slide, please. It is some of the basic overview on it. We have a 3-story atrium, light filled. That was one of the connections that the school was very much interested in. Was typically with science buildings, they tend to be focused on chemistry, or physics, one type of discipline. No, this was an interconnected disciplines. What they wanted to do was they saw all these connections in the research facilities and this and the teaching facilities, and they wanted them in the same building. They wanted the same sense of community. And to do that, they had large active learning classrooms, collaboration. You'll see a staircase over on the left there of this photo. And that's part of this sense of community. This staircase, it does become kind of the town square. When you really watch the building in operation, the kids are sitting on the staircase, people are conversing up and down, et cetera. It does become part of the town square. They had significant research, computing, and data visualizations disciplines in the building. When you see the power and data coming into this building, it is significant. Literally miles and miles and miles of data cable because of the research that's happening within the building. And a lot of the research is happening at a national scale. They work with various organizations here that up in they're going over, was NGA and a few others, Boeing, all those kinds of things. And yet they still allow the freshman, the sophomore student to come into the labs. They can see through. The labs are transparent with transparent window walls, et cetera. Again, trying to make those connections. Next slide, please. And when you talk about a campus, you have an owner's philosophy, and how do we connect that owner's philosophy, that vision, with LEED's vision and with, in this case, the infrastructure project? It was not easy. Next slide, please. And the Slough Mission, these are little excerpts from the Slough Mission statement, and the excellence in teaching, research, healthcare, and service to the community. Create the academic environment, everything that you're seeing there, support collaborative efforts, and the welcome individuals from all racial and ethnic and religious backgrounds. A small little vignette on that is we had to find a special a plumbing fixture for a lot of the Muslim students because it had to be a fixture where they can wash their feet, yet it had to meet LEED standards. I know this is a small little detail, but we found it, a little research, and we got it. And also the last thing that you want to keep track of with, particularly on this campus, is they are very, very wise in how they spend their money. And they're not going to do it in an unsustainable manner, and they are looking long-term. And that was part of the reason for why they went to the infrastructure project. They went to a bunch of different meters. They were actually accumulating and purchasing power and gas and things like that at a much lower rate now. And next slide, please. And part of their mission, of course, is the emphasis on sustainability and stewardship and social justice. And this would give them an opportunity when they brought this building online to blend the cutting edge LEED standards with their traditional palette. If you walked the Slough campus. It is a traditional architectural palette, and yet they still wanted to meet that and still meet it with LEED standards in a sustainable, cost-effective manner. We did reuse some areas. We did reuse some components. There were some fountains and things like that will be relocated to other parts of the campus. That was part of their goals. Next slide, please. And this infrastructure project, I mean, this is what's complicated. It was very difficult to build. This project is right in the middle of the campus. There is one way in and there is one way out, and that's it. And we had to share that egress and ingress with this campus infrastructure project. We had to, and I was adamant about this. Those of you who are working with LEED standards, the LEED boundary. I mean, the LEED boundary that was cast in stone. We were not going to allow anyone or anything coming across the LEED boundary to start to interfere with this project. Part of this also is that the concept is that we are now doing hub buildings. They're more like pearls on the chain. We have in this building, we have 2 chillers that are within the building, but we have space within this building to add a 3rd chiller. We have space on the site to add a 2nd, or actually a 3rd cooling tower, because these systems operate adjoining buildings. Everything is interconnected because it's far more cost-effective and sustainable to operate a major campus in that manner. Next slide, please. And we'll talk briefly about the 4 pillars in action here, how we're doing this. Next slide, please. When I say the 4 pillars, I talk about the LEED 4 pillars. The center staircase, you can see that, kids, it really is exciting to watch the kids use this space. They'll lean over, they'll talk to their friends, all those kinds of things. They'll talk, yelling for this person, yelling for that person. Typically in a science building, you will never hear that. I find that exciting. I do find that kind of sense of community. The staircases, they were designed so that they were, became part of the community. They are touched with artwork, and there's a major art component to the building. The exit stairs, they are not just exit stairs. They take you out visually to the balance of the site and beyond the balance of the site in some cases, depending upon orientation, to give you views of the Midtown area of St. Louis. We're tying this whole thing together. By removing the area, the substation, and relocating it, it not only became far more efficient, but we gained space for an enjoyable green space in quad, which the people are using. And even the people that are outside of this building that connect to that quad are now using it. And so there is a little bit of COVID, separation right now, but when hopefully when we get through all this, then we will see, it even more used in even higher level. The one thing I would also like to talk about is when you look out and beyond this staircase, everybody talks about, well, where are the elevators and this and that. And in LEED, they don't want the elevator. They do not want it highly visible. But with this, because people will just tend to use it, they won't tend to use the health and wellness of the staircase. But we also had to address, there are some people in life that cannot use a staircase. But how do we connect that elevator, that person's needs with this central corridor and central atrium? And literally right around the corner, when you walk out, right around the corner is the elevator. When you walk out of the elevator, the light coming from this atrium pulls you into the atrium. And that is part of the design. That is why we did what we did. Next slide, please. When you talk about the equity and the glass transparency, you can see in this seating area here, that orange glass, it's a special film that was part of the glass, because beyond that glass is a chemistry lab. They're not that attractive, honestly. They are very nice, but they are a series of workstations, etc. But they also wanted to bring people in, bring the light from the atrium back into the lab and connect the lab. And that's part of that sense of equity and transparency. And the lounge spaces are kind of spread out throughout the building so that we do get this cross-discipline dialogues from literally some of the most high-profile researchers in the country in the various disciplines are sitting there chatting with a freshman or a sophomore about some question that they have. And that's what we're trying to do here. It's that sense of equity. Next slide, please. And resilience. It's part of, what we're trying to do is not only advance the scientific research in the Midtown, but in the St. Louis region. It ties back into their racial equity philosophy and the education philosophy and the social equity philosophy of the Slough campus and the Slough Mission. And yes, and part of this is it's a very durable structure. Yes, this is a poured in place cast concrete structure. Part of that is when you do scientific research, you cannot have vibration in the floor. It cannot happen. You just can't have it. We actually did tests on this building after it was built to confirm that we met our vibration standards. And we brought a guy in from Kentucky that will do that. So that's part of the resilience of this project. Next slide, please. And, when we talk about sustainability, yes, the school is very interested in it. They understand the cost effectiveness. They understand how it works with their core statement and their mission statements. And so therefore they were right on board. Full commissioning, mechanical and electrical systems, full commissioning down to the T. The building envelope, absolutely. There are some people that do, oh my gosh, we'll just leave it, let them build it and it'll work out okay. No, we did not do that. We talked a little bit about the efficient water and plumbing systems and fixtures. And they actually, what you're seeing here is the first electric car charging installation on campus. And what was really kind of fun about this was that how the parking facilities people really embraced this. They thought this was just wonderful. They are the ones that had the graphics package created for this. It's a lot different than, say, a Schnucks Center, where you see that and you can have your car charged there. No, they want you to come to the Slough campus and charge your car and be part of that community. And that was what they wanted to do. And what you're seeing is the graphics they're doing, to be honest. We also brought in irrigation water. We had to change the irrigation standards for the campus. They could not give up the sense of their campus or the landscaping of their campus. It's green lawns, but green lawns are very, very difficult to maintain. So what we did is we showed them that, yes, you can change your irrigation design and systems so that you can still have that green lawn if you want it and still be cost effective and meet your LEED certifications. Next slide, please. And to do all this, it takes a lot of people. Let's just make it simple there. It's not only the Slough community and their steering committees and the heads of the chemistry department and everyone like that, and the heads of the biology department. But there are, a vast number of people that we worked with and vast number of firms that worked on this project. And I'm very, very proud to say that I was part of that group. I think that pretty much should bring it to a close.
Great. Thank you, Peter. That was wonderful. And with that, we are already at our last presenters of the evening, and that is Tim Robottom and Lisa Morrison to talk about the phase 2 of the City Foundry. Tim Robottom is Principal and Chief Operating Officer for the Lawrence Group. Tim's role is to guide the organization in its daily operations, marketing, digital practice, and long-term planning. He also leads large-scale, complex projects and has recently completed over $150 million in urban redevelopment projects for Washington University. Tim also directs practice integration for Lawrence Group, working closely with affiliated companies, New and Found, and LG projects. He's been in practice for 28 years. Tim is a registered architect in 30 states. He is being joined with Lisa Morrison, and Lisa is Associate Principal at the Lawrence Group. She's also a certified interior designer, a well-accredited professional, and a Fitwel ambassador with 15 years of experience in corporate and hospitality design. She encourages implementing wellness concepts in architecture and construction industry to create sustainable, healthy environments. Recently, Lisa managed the 138,000 square foot design for Cushman & Wakefield's St. Louis office, which happens to be the first well-certified space in the state of Missouri. Very impressive. And what they are working on is the Vandy East offices, which are part of the phase 2 development at the City of Foundry, St. Louis. The project will be the first modern mass timber building erected in St. Louis and will seek WELL certification. Please take the floor. Tim and Lisa, all yours.
Tim,
you
you're
need to unmute, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try that again. Lisa, thank you. What an impressive group of projects we're looking at this evening. I think ours was entitled a sneak peek, and that's truly what it's going to be this evening, because we're just in the very early phases of design development. Just a quick overview. I think most people are aware of the City Foundry project, the 9-acre redevelopment in Midtown, bounded by Van Deventer and Forest Park Parkway. The first phase was about $220 million. It is ready to be open. We are so excited to make that happen as soon as we get a little further along in our COVID protocols. And we're hoping that by the end of the summer that can occur. Interestingly enough, the project is about 100,000 square feet of office, 100,000 square feet of entertainment, and 100,000 square feet of retail. We have leased all of the office space in the development. And so that's what really prompted when we started thinking about phase 2, which is the property to the west. We started asking ourselves, well, what programmatically would we like that to be? And so next slide, please. Oh, next slide. Next slide. So here you can see the overall site plan. So the gray is on the right-hand side is City Foundry Phase 1, which is the original Foundry building, the parking structure along Forest Park Parkway, what's known as the BICO building up at Spring Avenue and Forest Park Parkway, which will have a Fresh Time grocer on the main level, and a company by the name of Deli Star, which is actually partnered with St. Louis University and their dietetics program. They're an innovative food company. And then in the blue, to the left there along Van Deventer, you see Phase 2. And Phase 2 is comprised of an $80 million garage and residential tower that starts 7 stories up in the air. It goes up to 14 stories. That's residential. And then the, the office building fronts on what we call the eyeball, which is that sort of oculus-shaped piece that really converges Foundry Way at the point of the renovated Foundry and the new construction, which we refer to as Bandy East. Next slide. So here's a little bit of a site plan zoom in. This is showing in orange there the ground level of the residential building, and then in the blue is the footprint of the office building. And one of the challenges of the site here is we're trying to maximize the floor plate, which is about 17,000 square feet per floor, on what is arguably a very tight site. We're hemmed in against the alley on the north, the Foundry Way on the south, and then all the original Foundry building as you move to the east. Next slide. So this is the conceptual rendering. This is looking from Foundry Way back toward Van Deventer. And so this building is going to form a terminus in the overall design of the Foundry. On the right side is the Alamo Drafthouse Theater, which the core shell is complete and will be commencing the interior fit out sometime in late summer, early fall. And on the left is the tie-in known as the Brick Line. And the Brick Line is a part of the GRG trail system, which will ultimately go all the way to Forest Park. But this particular phase will connect the Foundry up into the Cortex Innovation District. Next slide. So what we wanted to really kind of just share with everyone this evening is, number one, we are not experts in mass timber. Myself and other architects within our organization are learning a lot about the technology. And when I say mass timber, I'm speaking of modern mass timber. And when we started thinking about the building, we look, well, why would we do this? And predominantly what we saw in our phase 1 office projects was that innovative companies want to be located and knock out just cool space. And the aesthetics of those space leads to a feeling and an air of sophistication about what they put in there from a programmatic platform. And we felt like the mass timber represented innovation in a way that would attract high-tech companies, companies that want to be involved in the Central Corridor, involved with all the great research that goes on at St. Louis University. And then lastly, it was partly about constructability. The site, as you saw on the site plan, is very constrained. And we were looking for a way where we could build the building faster than, say, a typical steel or poured in place concrete building, as well as building it adjacent to the residential and garage structure. So those were our sort of reasons for choosing that. Next slide. And so just quickly, what is mass timber? And again, in the modern sense, our proposal is going to be a combination of what's known as CLT and GLT. So the floor systems will be a cross laminated timber, and the posts and beams will be a glue laminated timber. There are other systems in terms of nail laminated and dowel laminated. After reviewing options, we decided the CLT and GLT was the way for us to move forward, and that's the system that we're designing around. We are partnered with KPFF structural engineers, and we're actually using some expertise out of their Portland and Seattle offices who've done a lot of this type of construction in the Pacific Northwest. Next slide. So the big debate around mass timber is, does it really save carbon footprint over the inherent predominant materials of concrete and steel? There's a lot of articles pro and con about it, but I thought we would just share a little bit about our learning experience, and that is, we all know trees absorb carbon over their lifetime, and that's within their branch networks, their trunk networks, and even within the forest floor itself. There's a lot of great new research out about mycorrhizae fungi. There's a great book by the ecologist Suzanne Simone called Finding the Mother Tree. It's a fascinating read about how trees exist within the forest. And so at the end of a tree's life, there's sort of 3 possibilities. It can be a slow decay and death. which happens in a natural undisturbed forest. It can succumb to fire, disease, insects, which is an accelerated carbon decay, or the trees can be harvested and they can store their carbon. And we believe that that's the premise behind the rise in mass timber design and construction that we currently see, not just in the United States, but across the world. Next slide. So with respect to the economics, certainly everyone's probably acutely aware of the challenges occurring in the commodity markets right now. Material cost is not necessarily cheaper for mass timber building. But what we have found is that the labor savings with an accelerated construction and erection schedule, that leads to a construction efficiency. And so when our projects group did early cost opinions for the City Foundry Phase 2, we determined that the savings would equal and pretty much make a wash of trying to do the building out of steel or concrete. And again, as I said earlier, the aesthetic is really paramount to the marketability of the project and being able to attract top level tenants. Next slide. And of course, there are societal and environmental benefits. I think we're really intrigued by sort of the high level finish and structural material combined. It leads for a very clean, modern interior. Much of our research has, also indicated that, mass timber serves as a humidity moderator, and people generally, as occupants of the building, tend to react positively to the mass timber and react positively to the air quality environment in the building. Next slide. So there's just a couple of resources here. thinkwood.com and woodworks.org just have a lot of links to learn about the technology. As I said, we don't profess to be experts on this yet, but we have learned a lot in our research, and we're in the early design development phase. And I think Lisa's going to talk a little bit about how well design lays over the mass timber concept and the environment that we're trying to create within this building.
Yes, thanks, Tim. Good evening, everybody. You can go ahead to the next one. I'm super excited. A couple years ago, I did one of these in person, and I talked about the well building standard for that Cushman Wakefield project. That's still the first and second office building certified in the state of Missouri. And you guys are a little on the cutting edge, so a lot of people knew about it, but I'm so excited to already have heard well talked about in the presentations earlier, because it's nice to continue to get to hear people understand it and know that it's out there, and it's just going to be becoming more and more prevalent as we go on. If you don't know about it, well building standard is likened to a LEED standard, except WELL's really about the people, and it's an opportunity to advance health and wellness in our building environments. Like I said, WELL's about the people. LEED takes us to a certain point with the building technology. Where WELL picks up is really thinking about the occupants, thinking about their mental wellness, their health, and really focusing not beyond just the built environment, but that next step of who the occupiers are. And the reason that is really so important is because we spend, especially over the last year, it seems like we spend 90% of our time indoors. And that can be, our residences over the last year, that can be our office buildings, retail environments. It's where we live, work, and play. So thinking about the health and wellness and the healthy buildings that we want to occupy, it boils down to how we feel and what affects our wellness. So WELL was established about 2012. So we're now in our, almost 10 years in, and they've just done a version 2 update, not too dissimilar to what LEED does. And the biggest thing, if you go to the next one, is they changed from like an 8 concept, 7 concept really in the first version to now they do 10 concepts. We have air, water, nourishment, light, movement, thermal comfort, and sound, which thermal comfort and sound used to be under the comfort. And then we have materials, which is a new feature. And then mind and community, which is a big part of our conversation today. And then they also have innovation credits, which I think is one of the reasons I really like the WELL standard is Version 2 has been a prime example of they listen to the projects and the people who are submitting. They make improvements. They continually look at new scientific data, new research, and continually update the standard to, look at the new problems that we're facing. Next one. Still, scoring system is still very similar. They did change to a little bit of a points-based instead of a yes, no, go, no, go. You can do deeper point systems to get more enhanced credits. So they changed it a little bit from the previous system. Still the same 4 levels. So the one thing I wanted to just take a minute and talk about is a new safety rating that WELL has put out, which is the WELL Health Safety Rating. Go ahead and let you go to the next one. And this is an absolute reaction to the pandemic and COVID-19. One of the things, as a lot of us who are WELL APs started to see early on, is that the safety measures that we wanted to take on read almost out of the WELL handbook. They talked about air exchanges. We talked about hand washing. We talked about access to light and daylight and cleanable surfaces, protective surfaces, monitoring air quality, all of those things. As someone who's a WELL professional, we were hearing and kind of earmarking, well, this is a part of a healthy building. This makes sense. So last year, if you go to the next one, the IWBI started to look at a kind of a step into WELL is as a WELL Health Safety Rating. So the main focus is, like I talked about, the cleaning and sanitization, emergency preparedness, making sure that you had plans in place, reentry strategies, making sure that you had health services available to your staff, including sick leave and benefits. The air and water quality was a huge one, which I think we've seen over the last year has come up over and over again in healthy building and reopening strategies. And then all of this just being talked about in a way where stakeholders and occupants have an idea of the safety of their building, so they can feel comfortable going into a facility, going into work, going into a retail facility, and knowing that they are protected, that the owners have taken certain policies and protocols into practice so they can be safe in those spaces. And you'll see it, the last few slides, this is, for some reason, as soon as you get celebrities touting these standards, people know about them. So the one thing that WELL has done with the health safety rating, which you'll see here in just a second, is that they've tapped into celebrities to kind of voice it and show it. And you'll see it, it's indicated by the little seal on the glass on a lot of retail environments. They actually have a scaled cost measure, so that if you have multiple locations across the country, you get a scalable cost to implement it. And they even do discounting for small or sizes of offices compared to the occupants that you have, the employees that you have. And like I said, they wanted to make the standard flexible. They want it to be able to be verified and backed by research. So that's one of the things a lot of us heard. Here's what you should do. Here's CDC is telling you what to do. There's a lot of different places telling you how to have a reentry strategy, how to reopen, how to do it safely. They wanted a fact-based, scientific, research-based standard that you knew that company was following. Like I said, it was scalable, so it could be one company that's got 10 employees, or it could be a large corporation, and that it really was accessible. There was very little that you had to do to earn it in terms of the cost. They didn't want to make it something that you had to spend exorbitant amounts of money to do. There's 20 points roughly, and they want you to have 15 met to attain the rating, and the rating is good for about a year. And then the last one I just wanted to talk, if you've seen the commercials, they have YouTube, they actually have commercials on TV, and you'll get to see some of the celebrities that are touting it. So they encourage you to look for the seal, because that'll tell you that that place that you're entering has taken into account, and you can feel safe going inside. And that's all I got.
Great. Thank you very much, Lisa and Tim. That was wonderful. I know there was a bunch of questions that came in for that. And with that, we're going to go into the Q&A portion of the program. And I do want to let you all know that if your question is not asked, you will get a chance in the breakout rooms to have individual time, or actually rather group time, to ask questions and go a little bit further into it. So with that, I will go ahead and start asking the questions. And there's a bunch that just came in for City of Foundry. And that was the most recent one. So I do want to ask, Tim, why do you think the cost of lumber, or do you think the cost of lumber will affect mass timber and this project? You're on mute.
I'm having trouble with that this evening. We do. We are carrying contingency within our both construction and development budget. And we're also talking right now, we have 5 potential sources. And depending on the source and whether they manage their own forest, that impact we're finding to be much less than if it's just a company that is erecting the timber frame and purchasing timber from a forest that they do not own. So we are monitoring it very closely, because for us, we've been promoting it in the real estate market this way and as the development. So it's important that we follow through on the brand promise of it.
I am also on mute. So I think that problem is contagious. Peter, the question is next for you on, do you have any specific LEED related recommendations for a project of this complexity?
Yes, hire the best LEED consultant you can find. We did, and it was an excellent move on our part. Ms. Williams is just phenomenal. A lot of architects, including myself, we think we know it. We think we've got it. But the system's changed just as fast as you can imagine. The standards change. And I view the lead consultant at the same level that I would view a structural engineer or anyone else. It's just the nature of what we do, and that we just cannot quite keep up with every part of it. And so that would be truly one of my best pieces of advice, is to find the right people for your team, whether it's structural engineering, electrical, lead consultants, whatever it is. Research and laboratory designs, same way. We're becoming a specialized industry, and no one can quite grasp everything that we all have to be involved in. Hope that answers.
That was a great answer. Thank you, Peter. Okay, Eric, question for you. Why did the city of Brentwood decide to take this project on its own?
Mainly because as we talked to all of the different area municipalities and other Army Corps of Engineer, primarily the issue was that it only affected the city of Brentwood. So we try to talk to Webster Groves or Maplewood, since it really didn't affect them. There wasn't really a need for them to do this. So the city decided, 5 years ago, that if we want to do something, if we want to stop the flooding, it was going to have to be a city-led effort.
Great, thank you, Eric. Okay, Todd, a question for you is, what is your favorite cost-effective sustainability design option and why?
Well, I tell you what's interesting to me is when you're looking at a small project like this, that we've got all these preconceived notions that heat pumps cost more and economizers cost more, and they don't. I think one of the biggest things I realized is I could put a heat pump control valves, and I'm not the expert on this, for $1,200 per unit. And when I think of heat pump and I think of being a mechanical engineer, I think of heat pump being significantly more expensive than a standard rooftop unit. So I think what the interesting thing was, it just opened my eyes to the fact that when you really explore different variations and solutions on a small scale, that there are options to do these things with very effective cost return. Another thing is our engineers were even looking at the fan curve on our rooftop units to see if we could run them at a higher or a lower point on the fan curve versus using variable frequency drives. And it's just amazing how many little things can make a difference on a project.
Great, thank you. Okay, this next question is for Lisa Morrison. And it's also about the city foundry and your personal experience. Why would a building owner or the Vandy East owner be interested in pursuing well?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And I saw something come up in the chat about, was phase one designated as well? And it was not. I think the ownership group that we work with, they really wanted a way to differentiate this office building versus others. And there's tons of research that shows that you can ask for higher rent rates. You can, I mean, the occupancy rates of well-certified buildings, well-core buildings is significantly higher than standard construction. And Tim touched on it on the aesthetic. A lot of the companies that we have in the phase one and a lot of the folks who've come through and are looking for space really are forward-thinking, tech-minded. They want to think about their occupants, and they're trying to look for a space that promotes wellness, encourages engagement, think about retention on their staff, and the space that they operate in is a huge part of that. So we're definitely working with an educated base here in St. Louis and looking at those forward-thinking companies and trying to attract them to an innovative space like City Foundry.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
Peter, another question for you is, what was your favorite tool used during the LEED process? Oh, Peter, you are on mute.
Okay, here we go. Actually, on that, it was a recommendation by, again, Ms. Williams, and it was Green Badger. It's a software system that works incredibly well. It is simple to use. It's just intuitive. And it was, in my opinion, one of the reasons that we, from, let's see, June 23rd of 2020 was substantial completion. And we received our full accreditation on January 4th, 2021. So in roughly 6 months' time, we went completely through not only the construction phase, but the design phase process for LEED accreditation. And part of that was the tool that was recommended by Ms. Williams, to be absolutely honest. And I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Thank you, Peter. Eric, another question for you is, what impact will this project have on other communities downstream from Brentwood?
The good news is it won't have any impact. So we had to make sure that what we did was not going to negatively impact the communities downstream. So our engineers expect that since the water will flow better through Brentwood, that will actually help. But their design sayers like we couldn't do anything that would negatively affect anyone downstream. So pretty good.
Thank you. Okay, I have a question here from Brandon for Tim about the City of Foundry Phase 2. And this is a good one. Was Phase 1 designated as well or built to that standard? What instigated Phase 2 to take on well? And why well specifically and not LEED or another certification? And also, Lisa may be able to chime in on this as well.
Yes. So the first time I walked into the Foundry property was in July of 2015. And at the time, the plan for that site was to scrape it and put a target up. That was the, kind of the development plan. That plan fell through. And so when we looked at it, we sort of imagined a lot of what we do in our development work is, we travel the country and we look at other cities and what's happening. And we just felt that the structure was so special that it could become, sort of the foundation of an expanded, at the time, we called it literally east of Cortex. And so as we got into the project, it was amazingly complex in terms of programmatic tenants, the floor plan tenants were shifting from one end of the building to the other. So it was difficult for us to get our arms wrapped around how we would position sustainability within the total project. And the way we looked at it was, we're saving this incredible historic structure, which is part of, sort of our own, Lawrence Group and New and Founder development entity. It's part of our ethos about, making the city of St. Louis a great American city. So, so that's a long sort of philosophical answer to, what we didn't do in phase one, around that, around the well certification or any other certification. What I will say sustainably is we did preserve and restore a phenomenal structure. With respect to phase two, I think Lisa, kind of touched on that, and in her last answer, and Lisa, I'll just let you follow up with, kind of what our thoughts were on that phase two piece.
Yeah, I think it's it definitely gained some traction in our group. The main developer at New and Found is, I guess technically he's my boss. So it took a while to maybe get his ear and let him see that this was a standard that was really something we needed to look at. And as we started to look at what differentiates that phase two from other office buildings, the well standard just made so much sense. To talk a little bit about the phase one, because I've been involved in a lot of the phase one, we had a ton of different tenants. We had retail tenants, which there really wasn't a well standard for yet. It was kind of just coming to fruition back in 2015, 2016 when we were starting. It wasn't as developed as it is now. And I probably wouldn't have felt as comfortable chairing it back then. But the remediation and, like Tim said, and the salvaging of the existing foundry building when most people probably would have razzed it and started from scratch, I think has been our kind of kudos to the city. And that was our initial attempt. So when we did a new ground up mass timber, we had to make it a little more challenging. So why not add some well? We're going to do wired score. We're just trying to go after everything that really differentiates us from, competitors and really puts this on the mark of a landmark building in St. Louis.
Thank you, Tim and Lisa. And with that, we are at a good timing spot to go into our breakup session portion. And I think everyone is looking forward to this, to go a little bit further into detail, and everyone, it's an opportunity to get a little bit more personal networking time. So that I leave that to Freddie, I believe, to split us up into breakout sessions.
Okay, one moment while I make sure our leads are in the rooms that they need to be in. And then, yes.
Freddie, should we just say that we'll end the meeting tonight in the breakout sessions? So just one last thank you to our presenters for a great job tonight.
Yes, please.
And a thank you to Freddie for putting everything together and doing a great job.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for being here and showing up and being part of this community event. We really appreciate it. So we'll have breakout room 1, which will be our first presentation with Brentwood Bound and Eric. Breakout room 2 will be the Navigate Net Zero with Todd. And then 3 will be Lead at SLU with Peter. And then 4 will be Well and Mass Timber with Tim and Lisa of City Foundry. Okay, so you are going to be able to choose your own room, and you can feel free to move between rooms. It is 7:05, so we have about 20 minutes.
Hey, Peter,
Yes.
how do we choose? How do we see what rooms we're choosing?
Well, it's a very good question.
I don't see where it's showing up.
We're choosing you, but we don't know how.
Oh, I'll move you, Tom and Carol. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
How do you do it though, to get it to show up on your screen?
I wonder if there should be a breakout rooms kind of 4 squares logo at the bottom.
Yeah, maybe in the more. Oh, there. All right.
I don't see one on mine, but
Yeah.
Don't.
Freddie, I'm not seeing it.
Okay, where would you like to go? Sorry.
I'll go to the City Foundry one.
Okay, awesome. And Hannah, where would you like to go?
Wherever you need me, but yeah, whatever I'm looking for is not showing up.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm inviting you to room 1.
Yes, so go ahead and click that and you'll join room 1.
Yeah, Freddie, I'm in the same boat. I don't know if it's because I'm on my iPad. I don't.
Oh, okay. Would you like to go to the net zero breakout room?
Sure, wherever you want to put me.
Cool. Okay. And then Richard, I'm just gonna move you to net zero as well. Hey. Where'd your friends go, huh? Stella. Hey, Stella, ça va? No. Got it. Oh, I'm eating dinner now. Oh, I'm gonna eat some dinner. How was your dinner?
Right here.
Yeah.
Can we have that?
Thank you guys so much. You're the best. Oh, I'm eating dinner now.
Let's see it. Oh, so we're all done for work?
No, not yet. I'm not
Oh,
gonna be done until
dinner.
after you
How
go
was
to
your
bed.
Right here. I have to get ice cream.
You guys are, you're gonna go find some more frozen custard?
Yeah, but don't you want to come or do I have to pick up something for you?
I would love it if you could pick up something for me. Oh, I'm eating dinner now.
The running all the ears.
Ooh, yeah.
So we're all
Yeah.
done for work?
I think this timer on, so I need to be back at my desk in like 5 minutes.
After you go to bed. Right here.
Keep going.
I have to
Nope,
get
4
ice
minutes. Okay, I'll just stay here.
What happened? Don't you want to come or
The event's still running. Everybody's just in a networking room. So all of our participants are chatting with the presenters.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
So around 5 to 4.
This timer on, so I need to be back at my desk in like 5 minutes. Good job. Did you help Papa make dinner? Nope, 4 minutes. Okay, I'll just stay here.
What happened? Don't you want to come or
The event's still running. Everybody's just in a networking room. So all of our participants are chatting with the presenters.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
So around 5 to 4.
This timer on, so I need to be back at my desk in like 5 minutes. Good job. Did you help Papa make dinner? Nope, 4 minutes. Okay, I'll just stay here.
What happened? Don't you want to come or
The event's still running. Everybody's just in a networking room. So all of our participants are chatting with the presenters.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
So around 5 to 4.
This timer on, so I need to be back at my desk in like 5 minutes. Good job. Did you help Papa make dinner? Nope, 4 minutes. Okay, I'll just stay here.
What happened? Don't you want to come or
The event's still running. Everybody's just in a networking room. So all of our participants are chatting with the presenters.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
So around 5 to 4.
This timer on, so I need to be back at my desk in like 5 minutes. Good job. Did you help Papa make
I think we're done, right?
I think we're done. I was going to come
Now
back
we-
here and make sure.
I think now we leave the meeting or do we go to another breakout room?
Thank you guys. Thank you for hosting and doing everything. Oh, Lisa and Emily, I think you're muted.
Oh,
Yep.
Or you're miming.
welcome. Yeah, I'll try not to